Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. So today I wanted to talk about my 5 favorite books that I've read past year, so in 2020. And I've read 21 books last year, so that's why I'm not talking about that many books, because otherwise I would just be talking about like half the books I've read, and I picked my 5 favorites, so it's a bit more authentic, I think. I actually don't know the chronological order for these anymore, but I think the first one might have been Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. And this is the second book of the Vicious series, I think it's called. I actually don't even know if it's supposed to be a series or trilogy. It's definitely not a duology, there's a third book coming out. But basically this is an adult book. This is one of the only adult books I've ever read, but it's really good actually. And I usually only read YA books, so this has to say something. So basically this is a science fiction. You could maybe call this like an urban science fiction. Basically the main character, which name is Victor, turns into a supervillain through like a scientific accident, gets superpowers, and he uses them to do really bad things. So basically you're watching from the perspective of the bad guy, which is really interesting. And I don't want to give away too much, but basically there are people with superpowers, but it's kind of like urban because not everyone knows about them, so they just live amongst the normal humans, but they have their superpowers and they use them to do really bad things. And so this is the second part, so I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but basically there's a new villain in the game and she's written very well, and I don't like her character because like her character is really awful, but I like her perspective, and it's really interesting to read about. She's really well written, like the whole book is really well written, so I would definitely recommend you read this one if you like science fiction or whatever this is, or if you just want to try out something new, because for me this was something new. I don't know, I haven't read many books like this, or basically any book like this. Definitely would recommend. So the next book, basically if you're not into dinosaurs, you could skip this. But I read The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs by Steve Brucetti, I don't know. And this is a non-fiction book. This is, I only read fictional books, so yeah, I think this was like the first non-fictional book I've read voluntarily. This is actually really interesting. Like I said, if you're not into dinosaurs or like prehistorical things, maybe this is not something for you, but personally I love dinosaurs. I've loved dinosaurs since I was a little kid. My aunt always gave me dinosaur books to read when I was like 7, and I devoured those. Actually I read them before I could read. I just looked at the pictures. But yeah, I really like dinosaurs, and this is really cool. I even like marked some things. This sounds really smart, I think, but I think it's also like fairly easy to understand for it being a scientific book. But yeah, this just explains the rise and fall of the dinosaurs, so like how they became to be, how they evolved, and also some really interesting facts about climate change and climate in general, and also like the prehistoric climate changes, and I think that's really interesting. So if you like dinosaurs, I would recommend reading this. The next book was one of the last books I've read last year, and it's really popular, so you might know this one, but it's We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. It's honestly such a good book. This is really old, like it won the Goodreads Choice Awards 2014, and I've only just read it now. And I've always heard people talk about it. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that it literally has such a fucking big plot twist. Like either I'm just really dumb and didn't see it coming, but I was shocked. It's also really short, it's like 200 and something pages, barely. The characters are so well written, like you really feel with them, and they live on like this island for vacation because they are all really rich. So it's really cool, like summer vibes, and it's really fast paced and quick to read. Also it's written like really big, so if you're not that much of a reader, I would definitely recommend reading this one. Honestly, I don't want to give away too much, but like basically it's about teens and, you know, falling in love and just summer in general, and it's really great. And then the next two books I don't have a physical copy with me because one I read actually as an ebook and the other one my friend gave to me and I already gave it back to her. The first book I want to talk about is Serpent Dove by Shelby Mahurin. And this is a YA fantasy book about witches, which usually I don't even really like reading about witches that much, but this one I did really enjoy. Fun thing was actually I read the first 100 pages like really early last year and I didn't like it much, so like it took me really long to like get through it and I actually DNF'd it, which I really seldomly do. So for me, like, that book was over, I didn't want to read it, but I still had it on my pile of books that I want to read for a really long time, even though it was actually my friend's and I would have liked to give it back to her, but I just forgot all the time. And then I realized that I'm really behind on my challenge because I wanted to read 20 books last year, and I realized I still had this book, and I was like, you know what, let's just give it a chance, because I also had to wait for my other books that I had ordered to come. So I read it again, and I read it so quickly. I don't know what happened, but it was so good. Like, I literally devoured the rest of it. It's really great. Also, a lot of people actually love it, so maybe it was just me that didn't like the first 100 pages, and maybe other people actually do really like it. They weren't, like, bad, to be honest. I don't know, I just didn't really like those. But the rest of the book, perfect, really good, really good. And it actually made me like witches, so which is not really. And the last book I want to talk about is a really short, which is actually like a short story, I think. And it's To Be Told If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. And I read this because BooksWithEmilyFox recommended this book so often. And I usually trust her recommendations, so I was like, okay, it's a really short book, I'm just going to read it. It was actually the first ebook I've ever read in my whole life. Mainly because the physical copy was like €8 and it's like, I don't know if it's even 100 pages long, and the ebook was like €3, so I thought I was going to read that. It's a really sweet story. So it's about those 4 astronauts, and it's like really far in the future, and they just go and discover different planets and see how habitable they are, and just do like some research and stuff in it, and it's a really wholesome story actually. It's a science fiction story, obviously. I don't have much to say about it because it's really short, so I don't want to give away too much, but it's really sweet story and you actually learn some things. You should just check it out. It's really short, so there's not really much to lose. That was my really quick favorite books of the last year. Like I said, I only wanted to give you like a fraction, so this was like a fourth of all of the books I've read last year. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I usually don't do many book related videos, but I do love reading, but this channel is actually mostly like makeup, fashion and lifestyle. But once in a while I do a book video. If you want to see more, just let me know, please. I love talking about books. But yeah, I also have another video where I recommended a few books that you should read in quarantine. I can just link it to you at the end of this video. I hope to see you again in another video, and bye bye, have a good time.